Joining me now to discuss Fox News contributor Deneen Borelli and Democratic strategist Marsh. Marsh, let me ask you first. Ambitious, to say the least, $4.7 trillion. The more controversial parts of it, of course, cutting spending everywhere except with the Department of Defense. That was one of the topics that a lot of people aimed at and talked about there. And, of course, the border wall. What do you think?
Well, I think you had it right at the top of the show. This budget's DOA because there's bipartisan opposition to it already. The fact is this looks more like a blueprint for the for Trump's reelection than it is a budget for the country. And here's why. It certainly cuts domestic programs. It is increasing the deficit. It's increasing defense spending in a year where Republicans in particular have more seats at risk than Democrats do. That's why you're seeing the opposition. And last point, I think John Roberts asked the question of the day here from Fox News earlier when he asked about the OCA account. That account is basically a slush fund for any president that has wide discretion. They're going to use money from that fund to try to finish the wall because they're not going to get the funding from Congress. And you have a vote coming up on the national emergency any day now where Republicans are going to vote against Donald Trump and not grant him that.
Some Republicans will, enough that will force him to veto this. Right now, the conventional wisdom is that there aren't enough votes, though, to override a veto. But having said that, $8.6 billion for the border wall. Also, another somewhat controversial issue is that working for welfare. What are your thoughts on the whole thing?
Yeah, well, again, this is a proposal. I think the work for welfare, for example, what is wrong with able-bodied people working in order to get themselves off of government assistance if they're able to? That should be the American dream, the American way. But part of this proposal is also the president's promise of safety and security for Americans with the border wall and with bolstering our military. And this is something that Democrats are on the opposite end of the spectrum on. They don't want this wall to be completed as necessary. And what does that say for Americans, that Democrats would rather side for people coming across the border illegally than the safety and security of Americans? It's going to be a big 2020 issue on the campaign trail.
I think both of you are right that this is was more about, hey, framing the topics going into 2020. On the border wall, President Trump may get the money from wherever he can get it, but he will say, I went to Congress again and again and again. And in the grand scheme of things, $8.6 billion sounds like a lot, but it's a $4.7 trillion budget.
Well, the fact is, Democrats are going to, and Republicans are going to provide funds for border security, technology, more personnel, maybe some parts of the wall, but not the wall, a wall, because that's not going to secure the border. And just one point to your point about welfare and working for welfare benefits. We tried that in the 90s under Bill Clinton in the late 1990s. It was called workfare, and it failed. So finally, in
what part of it failed? Because I did a lot of research for this. I mean, I remember, but I did a lot of research for this, and I'm looking at unmarried mothers got jobs, relationships got better. I mean, the numbers seem to show a significant improvement in the amount of people going to work, the dignity of work, and even the overall jobs picture shifted pretty dramatically to the upside.
Well, I think the upside was the economy coming back at that point. So more people were able to get off government programs and get jobs. But there were a lot of people who were dropped off, didn't get benefits, lost their benefits, disabled people who didn't get the resources they needed. And so what happened was they started granting waivers in 2020. And some of the first people and most people who took those waivers were Republican governors. So I think we can do better across the board. But
well, the economy is firing on all cylinders. We got 7.3 million job openings. I was really remiss on Friday to find out 45,000 Americans left the labor force, so we might need something to nudge some of these folks off. But I do want to ask you about the deficits, Deneen. 1.1 trillion this year, 1.1 trillion next year, 1.1 trillion 2021, 1 trillion 2022. Could Russ have just simply said, listen, folks, deficits don't matter anymore. We don't care about that. Because essentially, isn't that where we are in D.C.?
No, they really should matter. And we also need to cut the spending that's going on. And that is also a part of this proposal. I believe it was 5% that the president
but even
proposed.
with that spending, those are the deficits that this budget proposes.
Sure.
I mean, is it time for them just to say, listen, Warren Buffett doesn't think it matters anymore. Most people don't think it matters anymore. Let's just go ahead and spend the money to fix the country.
No, it's important. Deficits definitely need to be addressed.
Ladies, thank you both very much. Appreciate it.